Hey there, fellow travelers and international enthusiasts. Welcome back to Park and Post. Today, we've got an exciting and informative video lined up for you. We'll be diving into the world of customs and import restrictions, those tricky rules and regulations that every savvy traveler needs to know before crossing borders. Whether you're planning an epic adventure or just curious about the world's diverse customs laws, this video has got you covered. Now, let's get started with the top 20 customs and import restrictions from around the globe. Kicking it off, we have the infamous prohibited items. Think illegal drugs, counterfeit products, and weapons, a definite no-go zone when crossing borders. Trust us, you don't want to mess with these. Many countries have a list of items that are strictly prohibited for import. For example, in the United States, importing narcotics, certain weapons like firearms and explosives, and counterfeit merchandise are strictly prohibited. Attempting to import such items can lead to severe legal consequences, including hefty fines and imprisonment. Next, we'll tackle restricted medications. Traveling with medications? Don't worry. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection allows most prescription medications for personal use. However, it's always wise to carry a doctor's prescription and ensure the medications are in their original packaging. Some countries have strict regulations regarding the import of medications, especially prescription drugs and controlled substances. For instance, in Canada, importing prescription medications in large quantities or without a valid prescription from a licensed Canadian healthcare provider is restricted. Travelers need to carry their prescription and declare their medication at the border to comply with the country's import regulations. Number 3. Food products. Attention, foodies. While the U.S. welcomes a vast array of cuisines, there are still restrictions on bringing certain food items across the border. Fresh fruits, vegetables, and meat products may face limitations, so check before packing those snacks. Countries often impose import restrictions on certain food items to safeguard their agriculture and prevent the introduction of diseases or pests. Australia, for example, prohibits the importation of most fresh fruits, vegetables, and meat products to protect its unique ecosystem from potential pests and diseases that could devastate local flora and fauna. Number 4. Agricultural products. Are you an avid gardener or a plant lover? Hold on! Bringing plants and seeds into the U.S. might be subject to strict regulations to prevent the introduction of invasive species. To prevent the spread of pests and diseases that can harm domestic agriculture, countries may have strict regulations on importing plants, seeds, and agricultural produce. New Zealand, known for its pristine environment, has stringent restrictions on importing plants and plant products to preserve its ecosystem and agricultural industry. Number 5. Cultural artifacts. Preserving cultural heritage is paramount, and the U.S. is no exception. Certain cultural artifacts and antiquities require proper documentation and clearance to be brought into the country legally. The trade of cultural artifacts and antiquities is heavily regulated worldwide to protect cultural heritage and prevent illegal trade. For example, Italy has strict laws against the unauthorized export and import of archaeological artifacts to combat looting and preserve its rich historical heritage. Number 6. Hazardous materials. Safety is a top priority. Hazardous materials such as flammable substances and chemicals must be declared and handled according to U.S. regulations. Don't worry, it's all in the name of safety. Importing hazardous substances, chemicals, or materials is subject to stringent regulations and safety measures. For instance, the European Union's REACH regulation requires companies to register, evaluate, and authorize the use of chemicals to ensure their safe handling and minimize risks to human health and the environment. Number 7. Endangered species and wildlife products. Our wildlife and environment deserve protection. The U.S. enforces stringent laws on importing products made from endangered species to combat illegal wildlife trafficking and preserve biodiversity. To protect endangered species and combat illegal wildlife trafficking, Many countries have strict laws against importing products made from endangered animals or plants. For example, China prohibits the import of ivory to preserve elephant populations and combat illegal poaching. Number 8. Alcohol and tobacco. Cheers. If you plan to indulge in alcohol during your stay, be aware of duty-free limits and the legal drinking age in different countries. Stay responsible and respect local laws. Importing alcoholic beverages and tobacco products often involves paying customs duties and complying with specific import limits. For instance, in the United Kingdom, travelers can bring in limited quantities of alcohol and tobacco duty-free for personal use. Number 9. Firearms and ammunition. Firearms and ammunition are subject to strict controls. Unless you're a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, it's best to leave these items at home. Importing firearms and ammunition is heavily regulated by most countries to prevent illegal arms trade and ensure public safety. For instance, Japan has strict laws regarding the possession and importation of firearms with a lengthy and rigorous licensing process. Number 10. Currency and monetary instruments. Currency matters. While there's no limit to how much money you can bring into the U.S., many countries impose restrictions on the amount of cash that travelers can bring into the country without declaring it at customs. For example, the United States requires travelers to declare if they are carrying more than $10,000 in currency or monetary instruments upon entry. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe and click the bell to be notified of our latest travel tips, and share this information with your friends and family. But let's get back to the topic. Top 10 customs and import restrictions you must know. Number 11. Electronics and telecommunications equipment. Tech-savvy travelers, listen up. Electronic devices such as laptops and smartphones are usually allowed for personal use. But keep in mind that some countries have restrictions on certain technology. Countries often require electronic devices to meet specific safety standards and have appropriate certifications before import. For instance, the European Union has the CE marking requirement to ensure products meet health, safety, and environmental protection standards. Number 12. Pharmaceuticals and medical equipment. Importing pharmaceuticals and medical equipment requires valid prescriptions and adherence to U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) guidelines. Importing pharmaceuticals and medical equipment may require approval from health authorities to ensure their safety and efficacy. For example, India imposes regulations on importing medical devices to safeguard public health and ensure product quality. Number 13. Books, media, and publications. Are you a bookworm eager to read on your journey? While books for personal use are generally allowed, be mindful of any materials that might be considered controversial or offensive. Some countries have restrictions on importing books, magazines, or other publications that are considered inappropriate or sensitive. China, for example, has strict censorship rules that limit the import of certain books and media content. Number 14. Seeds and plants. Green thumbs, pay attention. If you plan to bring seeds or plants, ensure they have proper phytosanitary certificates and meet the U.S. Department of Agriculture's (USDA) requirements. Importing seeds and plants often requires permits and compliance with agricultural guidelines. For example, Australia has strict regulations on importing seeds to prevent the introduction of foreign plant species that could disrupt the country's delicate ecosystem. Number 15. Textiles and clothing. Fashionistas, take note. While bringing clothing for personal use is usually not a problem, customs might become suspicious if you're carrying an excessive number of the same item. Some countries impose restrictions on textile and clothing imports to protect local industries and ensure compliance with safety and quality standards. India, for instance, has quotas and tariffs on certain textile imports to support its domestic textile industry. Number 16. Precious metals and stones. Shiny treasures need declaration. If you're carrying precious metals, gemstones, or jewelry worth over $10,000, be sure to declare them to customs. Importing precious metals, gemstones, or jewelry may be subject to specific regulations and taxes. In the United Arab Emirates, gold imports are subject to customs duties to control the influx of precious metals and stabilize the market. Number 17. Radioactive materials. Stay safe and sound. Radioactive materials, such as certain medical devices or scientific equipment, require proper permits and declarations at customs. Importing radioactive substances requires strict compliance with safety and environmental standards to prevent radiation hazards. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, sets international guidelines to regulate the import and export of radioactive materials. Number 18. Counterfeit goods. Fakes are a big no-no. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection is vigilant in detecting counterfeit goods. Save yourself the headache and purchase authentic products. Importing counterfeit products is illegal and subject to penalties. For example, the European Union has strict regulations to prevent the importation of counterfeit goods and protect intellectual property rights. Number 19. Personal effects. Pack light. While most personal effects for personal use are allowed, be aware of duty-free limits to avoid unnecessary customs fees. Some countries have restrictions on the value or quantity of personal belongings brought in by travelers. Australia, for instance, has a limit on the total value of personal effects that can be imported duty-free. As we wrap up this enthralling exploration of top 20 customs and import restrictions you must know, keep in mind that by reserving your tickets online now, you can snag an exclusive savings on your upcoming flight. Make the most of our exceptional discount by clicking the link below this video. Number 20. Last but certainly not least, electronic cigarettes and vaping products. To you all vapors, electronic cigarettes and vaping products have specific regulations in the U.S. Make sure to follow the guidelines to vape responsibly during your visit. Importing electronic cigarettes and vaping devices may have restrictions in some jurisdictions due to health and safety concerns. For example, Thailand has strict regulations on importing e-cigarettes and vaping products, and possession can lead to fines or imprisonment. Phew! That was quite the journey through customs and import restrictions. Remember, staying informed is the key to smooth travels. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more exciting travel content, give us a big thumbs up and share it with your wanderlust-filled friends. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of our latest adventures. Thanks for joining us today. Safe travels, and we'll see you in the next video.